Okay, can you see the screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, welcome to the first lecture of solid mechanics. Myself, Pradyumna from Department of Applied Mechanics, IIT Delhi. We'll have the lectures every Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday from 11 to 12 in the morning, right? And all the classes will be conducted in MS Teams, and the recorded videos of all the lectures and the lecture notes are also made available in the MS Teams app itself. Okay. So there is a course website which is there in the Applied Mechanics department, and go to my web page, or you can directly click this website for other informations like how to get the tutorial problems and instructions regarding the course, like that. It's already active right now. Also, you can access that. And moreover, I will be uploading this tutorial sheets and other instructions in MS Teams also directly. So you can access these tutorial sheets and any other material in the MS Teams itself. So as I told before, we conduct the lectures in either synchronous or asynchronous mode using MS Teams. So when it is conducted in asynchronous mode, I will put the recorded video in the MS Teams app, and then we can have some live discussion sessions like problem solving or doubt clearing sessions if there are any doubts from you all coming in advance, so that we can discuss, and then you can ask any doubt you have. So we can conduct live doubt clearing session if there is any need for that, such session. So the recorded videos will be available in MS Teams. Maybe Imparters can also, I can try. Practical component of the course, we have to discuss whether to go it for online mode or wait for institute guidelines. And I will circulate all the tutorial problems for that particular week before each tutorial class, and they will be available either in my web page or in the MS Teams app. So these problems you need to solve, and then you can come back. I'll come to the course evaluation. In the course evaluation, this is the tentative scheme. We have one minor, and the weightage for that is 25%, and major has 40%. This has a tutorial component also. We have assignments or quizzes which carries about 35% weightage. Okay, we will have online quizzes very frequently in the Moodle platform. These quizzes actually maybe there may be every week or every alternate week. That depends on the topic. We'll conduct the quiz, or there may be surprise quizzes as well. So the type of questions in this quiz will be of either MCQ or a small answer, like you just have to enter the number, numerical answer type question. So I assume that the data for different students will be different in this case. And there will be no makeup tests or quizzes. So if you miss a quiz, then you cannot have any makeup quiz. If you miss in case of any medical emergency or something, valid medical reason, the minor test, so there will be one makeup minor towards the end of this semester will be given. So we usually have the whole syllabus for the makeup minor. Therefore, this test will be more difficult than the regular tests because the syllabus is huge, right? I'll come to the course content. In the course content, we start with concept of stresses and strains, definitions, transformation of stress, Morse circle, generalized Hooke's law, thermal stresses, yield criteria, differential equation of equilibrium, and compatibility equations. Basically, we are discussing uh, the behavior of any body or any material under different types of loading. Now, for example, if why do we study, what do we study in this course? To be told in brief, for example, let me consider a simple structure like this. You may assume it as a beam or any structural component. So let us assume that I have this is the x-axis, this is the y-axis, and this is the z-axis. Okay, and I apply a load like this at certain point P, and assume that here This distance is B from here to here, and from here to here it is equal to A. Okay. So this load actually P, you can say it's a vector, and I can say that I want to know the effect of this load on the body. So what I can do is I can just consider that this load is transferred here. So with x component, that is Px, I can have Py, and I can have Pz. So I can shift this P to the centroid of this cross section. Okay. So that's not the only way I can do it, right? So I need to consider the effect of the moment also when I shift this. So there will be certain moments which I need to consider. So if I come to this x-axis, y-axis, and z-axis, I will have, for example, this is mx, this is my, and this is my mz. Okay. So these moments actually create different actions in the body that I need to consider this. So that means I have the force vector is having pxi, pyj, and pzk, and the moment I have is that mxi plus myj plus mzk. So in this case, if I assume that on the body I have a moment about this axis, I call it as a torsion. Torsion. So anything which is the moment applied about the axis, longitudinal axis of any structure, we call it as torsion. And there will be moment in this sorry. mx will create a torsion. Mz and my will create bending moment on the structural component that we are considering. So there will be bending action, there will be torsion, there's a twisting moment mx, and there is axial force. This is axial force px. There will be elongation of the body because of this axial force, longitudinally applied axial force, and these are the shear forces. This is the shear force, Py and Pz. So there are different actions either acting independently or in combination with each other. So these are the combination of forces which we need to consider in this problem. So there is a torsion, there is a bending, there is a shear, there is a axial force. If this force Px is compressive, then it's actually creating a buckling, or it's compressing the body, and it may be creating some stability problem also. If you just compress something, it may crash, it may buckle, it may fail, anything may happen. So that means we need to understand the action of these kind of forces in this. So that means we are actually considering what happens when a body is subjected to different action of forces. That means we are interested in finding out what is the distribution of stress, what is the deformation because of this action. There may be torsion. That means if there is a torsion, there is a change in the angle, there is a twist, which we call as angle of twist. There may be elongation, there may be compression, there is a displacement because of the bending and all. So these are the different aspects that we are interested in finding out. Okay, so we need to understand this kind of behavior when we want to make any design of a component which could be subjected by these type of forces. So I can reduce this force into a shear, axial, bending moment kind of thing, and then I can do the analysis. So that's what we do in this course. So if you come to the course content, here we want to discuss what is the concept of stress. So why do we require the stress? What are the definition? So we can learn this in detail. So pure bending of straight beam, symmetric and unsymmetric cross sections, bending stresses and all. So as I said before, we have bending moments also. That is, this is bending moment my, this is bending moment mz. So what happens when you have a bending moment, how the stresses vary across across the cross section of the beam and all. So we can study that. And also there is we actually study what is this called as pure bending. We'll discuss what is pure bending and what is symmetric and unsymmetric bending later. Torsion of circular cross section. So the torsion is actually because of this twisting moment mx acting on the acting about the longitudinal axis of the body. So because of these forces, there will be deflection. So that deflection we have to study for straight beams, and you can get it for a curved beam as well later. And then because of these shear forces acting Py and Pz, there could be shear stresses developed in the beams. So what is the variation of the shear stresses and all we have to study later. Elastic stability of columns. When I say that I have a column like this, so it is subjected to, let's say, compressive force P. What will happen is this will undergo this will undergo axial compression. So if you keep on increasing this load P, what happens is that this column may buckle. So that actually is a stability problem. So that we study in the elastic stability of columns. And then there are some energy methods which actually helps in finding out the displacement reaction forces and in the determinate as well as indeterminate structures. And finally we go for the axisymmetric problem where we consider thin and thick walled cylinders subjected to internal and external pressures. So for example, I have a pipe like this, so which is subjected to some kind of pressure, internal pressure. Maybe it may be carrying a fluid, and if it is buried, then you also get a external pressure. So this we have to investigate. So these are the type of problems we are looking in this course. So what type of stress, how the stress distribution acting on this body and all. So this is essential in case of designing the components of this. And for this also we go through yield criteria, which is also actually the different criteria required to establish or understand the failure behavior of the components under different action of loading. So this essentially is the is what we learn in this course APL 108 on solid mechanics. You can call it as strength of materials or mechanics of solids, or this is if this is the uh, total content of the course. So any question on this content, you can ask me questions. These are the reference books I follow for this course for different topics. So initially we start with this book and this book for sorry, this book for the first topic, that is on the stresses, stress transformation, and so on. For yield criteria, I take this help of this LS Srinath, this book. So these are the three books we in general follow right now, and there are some example problems, tutorial problems, and some topics we take from the Beer Johnston book. So these four are the important books that are required for this course. So is there any question? All right. Okay. So what is solid mechanics and why do we need to study solid mechanics? Solid mechanics, that there is a difference between the engineering mechanics that you learned in the previous semester and the solid mechanics. In the solid mechanics, what we do is this is a branch of applied mechanics in the mechanics that deals with the behavior of solid bodies under various types of loads. The difference between engineering mechanics and solid mechanics is that in engineering mechanics, you assume that the body is rigid. So there is no, for example, if I take this is the body, when it is deformed, because of different loads, it may deform like this, or it may deform something else. Let me erase this. It may deform something like this. This is the deformed shape. Now, how do I say it's a deformed body or it's a rigid body? If I take 2 points, right, point A and point B, the length of this line AB, if it is changed to A dash, B dash, if it is different from this L, it may be L plus something delta L, then you say that L plus delta L, that means it's a deformed body. If it remains as it is, just it goes to some other location, just it's a transformation, it's just given a translation, it goes to some other point and L remains same, this is actually a rigid body. Or it can be a rotation also, when you just rotate this body, this A, B remains as it is just a rigid body translation, or it's a rigid body rotation. So this was what we studied in case of engineering mechanics. But in this case, we need to consider the deformation because of the different loads that we have applied on the body. So this study is required to understand how this behaves under different type of loads. The deformation is required, the displacements are required, the internal force, internal reactions are required, the strain is required. That is because of it is essential to conduct the design of this type of structures, machine elements, or any kind of mechanical objects where you are thinking of applying the type of load which I discussed before. Okay, so now we need to understand the failure and strength criteria of this type of elements under different loads. How much load it can sustain, how much displacement is safe for us, and all. So we have different types of load like axial load, bending load, torsion, or it can be combination of any of these loads, right? So we are concerned with the internal forces, bending moments, and what happens with respect to the geometry because of the force we have applied. So that means the associated change in geometry of these components. So why do we want to do the analysis? To obtain the displacement, strain, stresses due to loads. So why do we need these kind of things? So it's required to carry out the design of any structure. We want to know, for example, you want to design a simple uh, rod, simple rod, which can take, for example, you want to do the push-ups on that rod, right? So how much strength it can take, how much load it can take, how much displacement you are allowing to go for that. So these are actually required in that case, right? So I cannot say how much load it will take just because of it may undergo some displacement. I cannot say that, for example, a steel rod will break at a particular load. I cannot say that that is the load I can apply to any load. So if I change the material to, let's say, aluminum rod, I cannot apply the similar load. If I change it to, let's say, plastic rod, I cannot apply the same load, right? So every material will behave differently for the same kind of action and reaction, right? So that means that the magnitude of the load or the magnitude of the displacement may not be a correct criteria in order to understand the behavior or in order to carry out the design. I cannot just say that just apply 10 kg load, it will be okay. Just apply 100 Newton, it will be okay. So I cannot say unless I know the stress strain behavior of the structure. So the internal reaction, how much the load, the type of material it takes. These are the details I require. Okay, that's what I'm saying, that the suitability of a structure or machine depend on the deformations as well as the stresses induced under loading. So not only the load, what is the stress internally, how it behaves, how the reaction is there, how the internally the applied force is resisted. So these are the type of detail we are looking for, right? So considering the structures as deformable just allows us to determine the member forces, reactions which are statically indeterminate, right? So if you consider the structure is undergoing some kind of deformation, so then the structure is not a determinate structure. So you cannot just with the help of your mechanics knowledge, you cannot understand what is the uh, stress, what is the kind of deformation it is undergoing. So it's not possible. So what type of failure will create the what type of let me say what type of deformation? For example, if it is undergoing lot of displacement, for example, if you take a rubber and you keep on stretching it, so it will undergo large deformation in the axial direction, so large extension, and then it breaks suddenly, right? So every material will not behave in the similar manner. There may be deformation due to creep. The smaller load you keep on applying for longer duration, because of the creep, there will be large strain. So this you have to understand. There will be plastic deformation, there will be fracture, there will be instability. There are different modes of failure. So to understand this each type of failure, so we do have to understand the stress strain behavior of this material. That is what we call it as a constitutive behavior of the material that we should understand. So that is helpful in understanding the behavior of the material. So basically we are considering the elastic material. So by definition, elasticity is the property by which a body returns to its original configurations after you remove the load. Now I can just apply, this is the variation. Let's say I keep on applying in this direction. So the stress strain curve goes like this. And if I remove the load, it comes back to the original position in the same path. So it's an elastic material, right? And there is no strain after you remove the load. Up to, let's say, a certain limit. May not be true for all type of loading and all type of magnitudes. So you keep on increasing the load stress, then there will be change in the strain. So if you remove that particular load, it comes back to its original position. So that means the material is elastic. So what happens in this case, figure B, let's say I apply the load like this, then it is not going to its original configuration because of excessive strain. There is some strain which is actually remaining in the material itself. So when I remove the load, it comes back to zero stress like this. There is some kind of strain which is there in the permanently, there is some strain in the material. So we call this as plastic deformation, right? There is plastic strain and plastic deformation because of that. Then again you start increasing the load, then what happens? It goes in another direction, and so on. It keeps on happening like this. So it comes back to its original position, but there may be some strain. So we have to learn how this behaves in the elastic zone if it is not in the plastic zone. The plastic material is one in which there is some strain left after removal of the load. So that material is called as a plastic material if it has some kind of initial strain in that. So that is actually a permanent strain. So it is not going to its original unstrained or unloaded configuration. So there will be some kind of strain which is called as a permanent set or permanent strain that will remain as it is. So even if you remove the load, zero load, it happens like that. So for example, if I take a rubber and I stretch it too much and leave it, there will be some kind of strain. So there will be some kind of change in the length of that particular rubber specimen I have used, right? So these are the elasticity and plasticity which we have to understand in this. So there are different materials called as rigid material, linearly elastic material, rigid plastic, so many materials. What happens if I take a rigid material? For example, if I consider a piece of chalk and just I apply the load, that means I just apply the axial load. I keep on stretching it, right? Pulling it from two different directions. So what happens is that there is a zero strain because for smaller loads, there is no extension or there is a negligible extension. If I keep on applying and if I apply large force, large enough, there will be breakage of that particular material. Maybe there may be large stress. There is no strain because it just breaks, right? If it breaks, there is no strain. So it suddenly breaks. You don't know when it is going to break. Some for at certain load it will break, right? So certain magnitude of the pull it will break. So in the linear elastic material, as I said just before, you keep on applying the load, the strain actually is linearly proportional to the stress. Stress is linearly proportional to the strain. So this is the definition of the Hooke's law up to the elastic limit. Perfectly plastic material. So there is a material, for example, you keep on applying the load, you increase the intensity of the load, the stress increases, and suddenly there is a permanent deformation. There is a permanent strain. There is a large strain after that, right? So this we call it as a perfectly plastic material. So initially it is rigid, and then there is a suddenly there is a the plastic behavior starts. Plastic behavior means the state of strain is not reverted back to its original configuration when you remove the disturbance or the load you have applied. And there is a rigid plastic material. Initially it's rigid up to here. Then what happens after you keep on increasing the stress, what happens is that then there is a plastic deformation, but it's not a perfectly plastic. There is a rigid plastic. There is a strain hardening taking place. So each of these behaviors we should understand in detail. We'll do that later. And there is a elastic and perfectly plastic. So this is a mix of elasticity where I can go for the linear elastic model, and then there is a large strain because of the plastic behavior of the material. So these are the different combination of material properties. There is another elastic plastic material where there is a strain hardening, there is non-strain hardening. When there is a strain hardening means that the strain is increasing and the stress is also increasing. In the non-strain hardening, what happens is that the strain just increases without the change in the stress. For the same amount of stress you are applying, the strain keep on changing. The strain is increased rapidly. In case of strain hardening, there is an interaction between the stress and strain. So that's what is the meaning of this. Now I come to the state of stress. So I said that the load is not a parameter. The displacement is also not a parameter in carrying out the design or to understand the behavior of the material, right? So when a structural member is under any type of load, you cannot predict its ability to withstand that load. So whether it takes 10 kilonewton load or 100 kilonewton load, for that material we don't know, right? It's not possible just by considering the reaction force. The reaction force is actually calculated by considering the body as rigid body, and then you conduct the analysis to find out the reaction forces. You do not consider the internal deformations when you find out the reaction forces. Did you consider that in your mechanics when you were calculating the reaction forces, drawing the shear force bending moment diagram? You did not do that, right? So we don't do that. So it's not possible just by the prediction of any reaction force or anything. You cannot say, because that just comes from the rigid body mechanics. And also when I have, for example, let's consider this body. This is subjected to some kind of different forces which are acting on body. P1, P2, P3, P4 are the point forces, and this P is the distributed force. Let's assume that this is fixed to some point, otherwise it's just a rigid body translation or rigid body motion is there. Now what happens is that this body is subjected to so many forces. I take a section like this. This is portion 1 and this is portion 2. Now if I cut this body, this is the portion 1. Now what happens is that at this, let's say I assume a delta A, a small area. There are lot of forces acting on this. So lot of forces acting on this. This is actually the force exerted by body 1 onto body 2, onto the other surface, right? The other surface, this is from the body 2. So this also will have equal and opposite interaction. That is from the Newton's law, equal and opposite reaction. Now, this is actually a distributed force on this area. Now I want to consider a small area delta A on which I have a kind of forces acting on this body. So delta F is what I consider as the resultant of the forces. So here delta F is the resultant force acting on that particular area delta A. Now I can also say that there is delta Fn, this one. This is actually normal to the surface we have considered, and this delta Fs is nothing but this is actually tangential to the surface. So normal and tangential components of these forces, that is the when you resolve this delta F, that is the resultant force to the normal and to the tangential components, that is the delta Fn and delta Fs. So this is the resultant force acting on that particular point C, right? Now, let's say at point C, I want to know the intensity of that force. So I just limit the delta A to 0 like this. So this is delta F is nothing but this is the resultant. And if I limit this delta A to 0, I get this is the stress sigma. The force divided by the area is actually stress. If I limit this delta A to 0, this we call it as the stress at a point. This is a stress at a point. There may be different number of components of stress. That's a different issue, and we will do that later. So sigma is stress at a point when I limit the delta A to 0. Are you understanding? So this is also called as a term which we call it as traction. This we call it as a traction. This is a traction force. So delta F is a traction force, and sigma is actually the stress at a point because of this may not be acting normal to the surface. It depends on the intensity of forces, the direction of the applied forces, and so on. So this delta F is actually the traction. This may not be in general, may not be normal to the surface. So normal component is delta Fn. So that is what we delta F. Now the traction force is resolved into the normal component delta Fn and the tangential delta Fs that are actually acting normal and tangential to delta A. So if I want to get normal stress at that particular point, sigma n, so that I take by dividing the area delta Fn by delta A, and putting the limit on delta A to 0. So this is what we call it as normal stress. So this is acting normal to the surface that we are considering. And also there is a shear stress. This is the because of the torsional, because of the force acting tangential to the area delta A. So this is the shear stress sigma s. So these are the two components acting on that particular point. Then you can consider different orientations and all. Now the question is, if I change this plane to some other plane, right? So instead of let's say considering this as n cap is the, let me change it. This is the n cap direction. So right, n cap means this is a unit vector normal to the surface we are considering. Instead of this, if I take another n1 prime, n1 cap, if this is the unit normal, then what happens? Will this sigma and sigma s be same, or it's different? Are you getting the point? So if, for example, if this is the body, let's say this is the body, and these are the forces we are applying. Now let's say I consider this section, right? This section. So that means I have here, This is the kind of thing we are looking at. Okay, so this is the normal stress, right? So this is the n. Now let's say I take the section in a different orientation, like this. Now what happens now? My whatever I have, I'm assuming here, whatever I'm assuming here, it becomes like this, like this. Now this is the normal. So will this intensity of sigma n here and sigma n1 here will be same?
No, sir.
Why? Why?
No, sir. Different components of F will be there.
Yes, right, correct. So that means this stress, normal stress or the shear stress, depends on two things. One is the direction of the normal, on direction of the stress, right? So whether it's acting in the along the normal, what is the direction of that normal? That is one thing. Another is the direction of the stress itself. Two things, right? Therefore, you are familiar with the scalar, you are familiar with the vector, right? In the vector, you have a magnitude and a direction. So here it is depending on two things. One, the direction of itself, another is the direction of the normal, on which plane it is acting, and what is the direction of the plane it is acting. So if you just change any of this, the whole sigma will be different, correct? Therefore, we call the stresses, the stress component as a tensor. This is a tensor. This is a tensor. That means it depends on normal to the plane and direction of the stress. Direction of the resultant force, that also you can say, direction of the force or stress. So therefore it's a tensor. So any one of these changes, the normal direction or the direction of the force itself, the tensor will change. So that means it depends on two directions. One is the direction of the stress, another direction of the normal, right? If you change any of this, the whole parameter will change. So example for a tensor is that you can have stress, strain, and the inertia, the moment of inertia, mass moment of inertia, or the area moment of inertia. So these are the examples for tensors. So if you want to change any one of this, the whole parameter will change, the whole component will change. So that is the stress parameter. So we want to understand more how many components of the stress and how to generate the type of stress which we are looking at and all. We can discuss that when we consider what is the stress notation, right? At a particular point, as I said here, I get two components, right? One normal to that, another shear, another tangential to that. So if I go to a three-dimensional body like this, right? So if I go to a three-dimensional body like this, so I have normal, which is this one. Normal is this one. There is no ambiguity in understanding this. But if you consider the tangential, there will be two components. If I consider the Cartesian coordinate system, right? So tau is the shear stress. One tangential to the surface along the x direction, one tangential to the plane along the z direction. So there may be three components of stress, one normal and two shear components on any particular plane. If you take a 3D cube like this, then what happens? You have 9 components of stress, right? Acting on x direction, y direction, z direction, normal stresses, and there are shear stresses. So we need to understand how you write the components of stress, how to get the positive stress, how to get the negative stress and all. So that we have to understand the component of stress, what is the meaning of, for example, tau xy or tau ij in general. If I say tau ij, that means the stress component acting on the I face in the jth direction. I face means having normal along I direction. That is I face. Yeah, we mean to say. So that means if I look at tau xy, tau xy, tau xy means that the first subscript x denotes that it is acting on a plane having x direction as the normal, and it is acting in the jth direction, in the y direction. So similarly, if I look at tau zx here, tau zx here. It is acting on a plane that has z direction, the normal along the z direction, and the stress itself is acting along the x direction. So that is the meaning of that. Tau xy means x denotes the direction of the normal of the to the face, and y denotes the direction in which the stress component is acting. So these are actually our understanding. For example, sigma x and sigma y, sigma z, these are the stress component. You can also write it as sigma xx. That means x is the direction of the normal, x is the direction of the stress. Ij also you can write when I is equal to j also, it's possible with the same definition. The stress is acting along the x direction, and the normal is also along the x direction. So this is when these are same, you call it as a normal stress. When I is not equal to j, xy, xz, yz, zy, they are called as the shear stresses. So that means there are three components of normal stress: sigma x, sigma y, sigma z, and there are six components of shear stress. That they are actually tau. They are actually tau xy, tau yx, tau xz, tau zx, tau yz, and tau zy. These are the six components of shear stress, and three components of normal stress are sigma x, sigma y, and sigma z. So there are 9 components, but we can reduce this to 6 by considering the symmetry of the shear stresses, so that we can discuss later. And there is also one more thing we have to discuss, that is the sign convention of the stress, so that we discuss. So that we can take up in the next lecture. Okay. So any doubt or any questions you want to ask, you are free to do that. Any questions on this?
Sir, in this cube, we could have considered that surface 1278 also.
Yes, yeah, you are right. That is true. What I mean to say is there are components acting here also, but we have not written. Otherwise, the figure would look very clumsy. There are actually, yes, stresses acting on these spaces also. Otherwise, there will be no equilibrium, right? So there is a sigma x here, there is a sigma x here also, there is sigma y here also. They are acting, but it's not considered in the figure. You are correct. That is true. But they are same, equal and opposite. So that's what I mean to say. If the body is rigid, they are equal and opposite.
Yes, sir.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah, yeah.
So in the stress formula we wrote above, so we took delta F upon delta A.
Yes.
So are the vectors being considered in this formula?
No, we are considering that delta F is actually the resultant force.
Yes, sir.
So that means we have a prescribed direction or already known direction of delta F. That is the resultant of the force. Only thing we know is the N. That is the normal direction we know.
Okay, sir,
So in that case, you may know this, but right now we are not getting into that, because only we are worried about is that delta F is the resultant force, or we call it as a traction force. And then we want to find out what is the stress at that point. Yes, we know the direction of the traction also, or the delta F also, but that depends on the external applied forces, right?
yes, sir.
Yeah, that we can find out.
So it's nothing like the vectors are being divided, right?
No, no, no.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Okay. Any other question? Okay, then I'll stop recording.